Normally on a Tuesday, I don't have a whole lot for you. I want to get her out to practice as fast as we possibly can, because that's what you do when you don't feel great about, the week before. And that's the toughest thing we talked about on Sunday in the game of football, right? I mean, you don't things don't go your way, you get beat. I mean, the only way to get that taste out of your mouth is go back out there and do it again. But the uniqueness of football is you play once every 7 days or 8 days or 6 days or whatever it is. So you got to find ways to get it out of your system. Obviously evaluating and doing things like that, but got to find ways to move on. And I know for me, Sunday was really good, just to be around our guys, to recognize, to see, their demeanors, their faces, their ability to go back out there and go back to work. And disappointed, of course, but yet it's not something that holds you back. And that's what I always worry about, because of some of the successes that we've had, is how do you rebound from some of these things, and how long does it sting, and how long does it stay with you. And what you can't do is allow it to compound and cause you problems for continued weeks. We know we've got a long way to go, and we got to get better. And the only way you can do that is by going back to work. And so I've been actually really kind of excited about what the guys did and how they came in on Sunday, the attitudes of of what they had. So we're excited about getting back out there today, because this is defensively a unique week, and obviously offensively it's a unique week too, because no matter what you do, you got to do it together. And anytime you play a service academy, especially one like Navy that knows what they do and does it really well, it puts pressure on everybody, just with maybe offensively the amount of possessions you might get and how critical everything is that you do.
Questions?
Are there realizations that set in from a loss with maybe players more specifically that they don't necessarily get from close wins?
I don't know. I think it does. It stings a little bit more, and it makes you, kind of self-evaluate a little bit more. There's still things, like I told them on Sunday, there's still things that you could be a guy that didn't play a snap, and there's something that's pulling at you and making it tougher and harder to get better and to move forward. You could be a guy that, Trey Tucker had 10 catches, maybe played really well. In some ways, it can be masked of what really happened. And so I think the thing that's different about when you lose is, I think all those things pull guys at different ways, whether you played well or you didn't play well, whether you didn't play at all, or you played a ton. I mean, just where in a win, everybody still feels good. I don't think you self-evaluate quite as much. And I don't mean how you played, but just in the big picture of things. So in some ways, there's a lot of things that we, that will help us grow, and we'll learn about each other.
You open the season on the road, and then 3 of your first 4 conference games are on the road. Going to November now, is that like a little bit nicer feeling to see 3 of your final 4 at home? Do you think being on the road so much has had an adverse impact?
I don't know. I think that, sometimes it brings you closer together. I guess it just depends on how you handle it. I'm not one of those guys that studies the schedule, and people would ask you at the beginning of the year, hey, what's the, what do you look? I look at the first 4, and then you look at the next 4, and then I look at the next 4, and just kind of couple them together. And I don't know if I would change and do anything different. I just think you figure out what you got a little bit more sometimes on the road, and the way you do things. But there's a comfort level, obviously, being at home, and no matter what we've said since Dave walked in here, is November is when it really, really, really matters. And not that the beginning doesn't, just like the first 4, not that they were preseason games. But in order to grow, you got to be playing your best at the end of the year. And the great thing is we still got a lot of room to grow. And I think that's what gives me a little bit of excitement. I know that our guys in the seats, I'm trying to find those ways to keep it exciting for what it is that they're doing, as opposed to just looking at the end result. And this is a stretch that we talk about in the winter. We talk about all through our winter workouts and in spring football. Not who you play at the end, but how you do things at the end of the year.
We asked you about the run game and maybe why Corey didn't see a lot of action Saturday. You said you wanted to take a look at it. Now that you've seen it, did you maybe discover something?
He didn't play. I needed to reevaluate and look at that. Obviously, you have plans, and you go into a game with a plan. And obviously, he's in the game plan. He's a big part of it. And sometimes plans change, and we weren't running the ball very well. Obviously, there were situations where we were throwing it a little bit more, and our older guys that we do feel probably a little bit more comfortable with the protections of things. So it's not a great situation. You'd love to give him more opportunities. He's a guy that has been very, very good for us, obviously running the football, and he's still young and in the development and understanding the system. And I think that we got in a situation where we felt a little bit more comfortable with the older guys, the two senior guys. You know, and those are one of those things we talk about on Sunday. There's all different ways that pull at you, and whether you're a guy that, like I said, that had 10 catches, or a guy that had a bunch of tackles, or a guy that for some reason didn't get an opportunity. You know, no matter what, you got to find a way to make sure you understand the big picture of things and continue to move forward.
On a positive note, Josh caught his 15th career touchdown. That's the school record for tight ends. Can you kind of reflect on that record for him, and also considering the success that's come through this program at that position, and also what has he meant to the success of this program?
Well, what he's meant is the start of it. You know, I mean, in the recruiting, all the way back then, you know, we were trying to sell dreams, and he was a guy that believed in us. He's a guy that, you know, stayed home and really saw what we wanted to do. We couldn't show him what we wanted to do because we hadn't done anything really yet. And then to see his progression, you know, I love to see it. He struggled as a young kid, meaning that like he didn't play a whole lot. I'm sure he had this aspiration of walking in the door and, you know, breaking that record in the first 2 years. But he's had the ability to really grow and grow and grow, and he's done a phenomenal job. He's a big part of what we do. But it's also a great example of some of these guys to see how, you know, things don't always go the way you expect it to and want it to. You know, they look at his first 2 years between injuries and just not as many opportunities. You know, maybe some really good players like Josiah and some other guys that, you know, he had to battle. And that's what's made him who he is.
This program's defense hasn't given up 500 plus yards very often in your time here. What did you see that they did well and that made you think you could have done better on Saturday?
Well, you know, you try to pick the things that you evaluate every week, and nobody wants to give up 500 yards, but like it comes down to points. It comes down to stops. You know, so for us, you know, we had an opportunity. We made some stops, but I think in the big picture of things, it comes down to big plays for us. And that's where we haven't done as good a job, and you know, that's where the yards kind of rack up. You know, and when you look at it, but it really, whether it's 600 yards, 500 yards, or 200 yards. The reality is it comes down to points. It comes down to, you know, what I always say is outplaying the other team's defense, or outplaying the other team's offense. And, you know, but I think down the stretch is where, you know, it hurt the most. And there's our ability to, you know, finish, our ability to maybe, you know, be a little bit of our own game, get wore down a little bit, that, you know, hasn't been something that's happened to us, that is one of those things that becomes a reality to you. And, you know, so there's those areas where we know we got to do better. We got to be able to play more guys, and I think that's what it really comes down to.
Saw a lot of 3 safety in this game. Was that wanting to get Armorion on the field some, or?
No, it's a little bit of limit with the defensive line guys. You know, we've some of those guys have been out. You know, and sometimes it's just something that fits us a little bit better. You know, it was obviously a schematic thing too with a lot of the, you know, lateral plays that those guys were so good at. You know, they were much more of a, you know, sweeps and jet sweeps and things like that, where we felt like the speed we had on the field with the edges we could play gave us a better opportunity. What, you know, maybe it didn't give us is some of the physicality up inside when it all comes down to it.
3 and out on the first 2 drives of each half for the offense. How do you get them in a rhythm quicker?
Well, it's not easy for me to get them in a rhythm. They got to get themselves in a lot of ways, but. You know, we just got to figure out. I think we're still trying to figure that thing out. Is who we are and how do we get started a little bit faster. And it's not that, you know, to take away from anything the other teams are doing. You know, I think that sometimes you come out and guys do give you things that maybe you didn't expect. And when that happens, I think that's where some of our youth, both offensively and defensively, shows up, is the ability to be able to adjust on the fly. You know, I would say in the last 2 years, I think we were maybe better at that. And you know, not because we were better coaches then. I just think that, you know, you had some guys that were a little further along that, you know, did a good job of being able to make adjustments, see it, recognize it, even within a series. So twofold. I think we've got to continue to grow, and I think that, you know, we've probably got to foresee some of that stuff and get a little bit better, you know, in our preparation.
Is that the difference of a guy like Dez with 4 years of starting experience?
Well, I don't just think it's the quarterback. It has obviously a lot to do with the quarterback, but I think it's the connection with the guys that are around him as well. You know, and I think Ben is far beyond, you know, what anybody would say is a first-year starter, you know, or a guy that's, you know, only played 1 year. I mean, he's been in the system. He understands it. He's very mature. He knows what he's doing. But I think that the ability to, do that as a whole makes it a little bit more difficult.
Talked last week about the outside noise with Ben specifically. Do you talk to him at all about, whether it's people wanting to change a quarterback or what you guys do internally? Is that something you sit down and actually talk to him about?
It's hard for me because I don't hear it. So when you guys bring it up, then I would say, oh, wow, is there outside noise? I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe my 7-year-olds or 8-year-olds ask me, say, hey, Dad, ask me one of those questions because maybe they hear somebody on TV say it. But, if I thought it was something that he needed, I would sit down with him. Not that, all guys don't like reassurance, but he's mature beyond his years. I think that, and to be honest with you, I think he does a really good job. I think sometimes it's a little bit harder on the other side with Evan, and don't want him to get frustrated. And I don't want him to lose confidence in what it is that he's doing. It's just, it's a little bit of the situation of which it is. So no matter what, those guys, in that room, Coach Gino does a great job. Those guys know we've got confidence in them. Whether we have to reassure them that we can and do at times, but I hope that they don't pay too much attention to the outside noise. I'm not saying they don't hear it, because you'd have to live under a rock to not hear it, right? I don't think most of those guys live under a rock, but I think it's a part of being able to grow up and mature and understand that what really matters is the guys in this room.
You have a history, Navy's a good example of kind of having losses and then bouncing back from them maybe a year later, a couple years later. Did it with UCF in 2018. Does this feel like another example of that potentially?
I don't know. I don't, reflect back on some of those situations. I think that obviously when you're playing a service academy Navy, it's always a little bit of a unique week. In some ways, it was great. It was awesome, to come back in here and actually be able to completely shift gears, get your mind onto something a little bit different. So I know this, that every team is different, every year is different. Sometimes week to week's a bit different, and that's where you really got to just continue to grow and make sure more than anything that the play on the field will take care of itself. The locker room and the preparation is what's so critical.
Any update on Jabari and how much has it been a challenge? Malik's out. Jabari's been limited. Your 5th and 6th year guys have been.
Yeah, that's where some of the depth of things has been a little bit of a challenge. That you got 2 guys that played a lot of football for you. Obviously Malik, going out in game 2, and Bari obviously out for the last 2 games basically. It does. It puts a little strain, but that's where we talk about those younger guys, the Noah Potters, the Justin Watleys. It's a lot of those guys got to really step up, and fill a bigger role. And that's what they have to do. That's what they're expected to do. And I tell you that they're growing, but I think that that's where last week some of the the wearing down probably hurt us a bit.
Does it feel like teams are seeing that and also not having a lot of success going at Briggs and Corleone, that now they're trying to get outside maybe a little?
Maybe. I mean, I don't think UCF did a whole lot different. Obviously,
yeah.
They're always uniquely different, meaning that each and every week they've got some things that they do and make it difficult on you. But they had been more of a perimeter run team. They had done a phenomenal job with getting their athletes in space and getting the quarterback outside in a lot of those situations. I think that, like you said, late in the game, maybe they found a little something that they maybe didn't plan on early on, and they stuck with it.
You've had your struggles at times against the run. Is it easy to look at them and say, Navy, if we're not,
it always is. I mean, those are the things that keep you awake for me at night. I know a lot of people would think that the game has become a passing game, and it has evolved, but I still think there's a lot of those things that start right there with the run, and it's been a little bit of Achilles heel. In some games we've been really, really good, and in some games we've been bad, and that's where the consistency, we've got to do a better job of.
For the run, it seems like it's been quarterback kind of run schemes that have given you guys the most trouble. How much of that is Sauce and Kobe not being there and maybe not having as much trust in leaving those guys by themselves?
I know all those things add up. I mean, you wouldn't say that having those 2 corners out there were a big part of stopping the quarterback run game in the last couple of years. But I think the big picture of things allows you to gang up and do some more things. Maybe even pressure a little bit more and not worried about leaving those guys in islands. But I'm not pointing a finger or saying that we can't still do it and haven't done it. I just think the overall picture and package of understanding. You know, when quarterbacks run the ball, there's issues always with, you know, extra hats and hats on hats, and what it really is going to come down to is guys winning. You can't just play that football concept, and you got to expect to win some more of those situations.
Obviously, heading into Navy with that triple option offense, was there any similarities UCF kind of ran to prepare you guys heading into a team like Navy?
No, I mean, obviously discipline. And I think that's where, you know, more than anything, that when you play the triple option, I think, you know, last week with a lot of the things they did, it made it tough and a little bit more difficult on your discipline, you know, based on your eyes and based on your leverages of things. But I mean, I think each and every week, regardless if it's playing a spread team one week to a triple option the next, to a quarter, they all help you continue to build if you have a system. And I think that's what we always envision. Regardless, in college football, you're going to get something, a lot of times something different each and every week, but it's all got to help you build. So every game does help you prepare for the next.
Will said something interesting. He said we had a lack of physicality and aggressiveness at the attack. Is that something that you can teach, or is that just something that they just didn't have going into that?
No, I think it's a comfort level. I think that's one of the things that last week they do a really good job of, is they take your aggressive nature away because of, you know, just by nature, some of the motions and shifts and pulls. I mean, they're pulling two guys one way and they run out the ball the other way. So by nature, it can take away a little bit of your aggressiveness. And that's where you got to just trust and believe in what it is you're doing. And I think that's where sometimes the older players, the guys that played a lot of ball, you know, when you get in those situations, maybe fare a little bit better. And, you know, than some of those guys that, you know, those things affect them in a bigger way. And I think that as we got down there, I think that, you know, was one of those things that caused us a little bit of problems.
We asked you a lot about how players respond. You have a lot of new assistants on this staff too. How have you seen maybe the coaches respond this week?
Well, I thought it was a big deal for us to, you know, come back in. I came back in here on Sunday, and, you know, obviously my gut hurt and things like that. But for me, it was to be an example of moving on and not dwell upon, you know, what happens. You know, I mean, I try to say it every week. You look at college football. There's not a lot of predictable things. You know, I mean, it's across the board. You know, you can predict probably the 5 or so of them that are, you know, going to be in the situation that they're in. But everybody else, it's pretty unpredictable, and you got it each and every week. So I thought they've been good. I think the chemistry obviously is good, but, you know, really you don't find out those things until you have some tougher times. And you know, so this is not just an opportunity for these 18 to 22-year-olds to grow. You know, you can grow as a 49-year-old. You can grow as a 65-year-old. You know, especially with the people that are around you, and it makes everybody, you know, have to grow, and it's a challenge.
Who's 65?
I don't know. Do we have anybody? Zach, 65, maybe.
Carrie's close.
I don't want to say he's 65. I didn't say that. No. 55.
That wasn't me. I had nothing to do with it.
Wid.
Wade.
He's been here for 65 years.
Navy lost their starting quarterback for the season. Does that make it even that much more of a challenge, or do you just rely on triple option?
No,
keys?
it does make it a little bit more of a challenge. You know, at least defensively, just trying to figure out, you know, do they stick the same? Do they stay the same? Are they, you know? So that's the beauty of it. You know, I know that for us, we've got to be able to adapt and adjust, and not just stay and always do the same things. And you know, but there's a little bit of a guessing game. And when they're really consistent, when they're really rolling, you know, I don't think you get a whole lot of different things. And you know, when they change quarterbacks and have some of those situations, I think that, well, you can get some different things. So it makes it for, you know, makes it for a little longer week, that's for sure.
One of the keys to stopping the option is stopping the dive.
Oh, you're going to tell me? Okay.
Yeah, I am. Do you disagree?
You were a triple option fullback?
Yeah.
Huh?
I was running. I was much smaller back then. Stopping the dive.
Yeah.
Is there a comfort level in knowing Briggs, Corleone?
There's never a real
Dono.
comfort level in stopping the dive with the triple option, to be honest with you. They do a really good job of it. And, you know, but, I mean, the first thing it comes down to is people. And you know, it's better to have those big fellas inside that they give us a better opportunity, that's for sure. But it's all about angles, you know, and they might be 295 pounds or, you know, 300 pounds and not, you know, you're bigger, this, that, the other thing, but it still comes down to angles. it still comes down to 2 or 3 yards, and those things leave you awake at night when guys like you are running the ball up the middle for 2 and 3 yards every pop. Makes it difficult.
Final question.
I know you don't want to look ahead too much. I don't think there's any triple option teams in the conference you're going to be in next year. Are you hoping this is the last time you have to deal with it for a while, or will you schedule more Kenneth?
Yeah, we're gonna definitely. We've talked about trying to find a way to schedule so we can keep our nights long, and
Chad can keep giving you pointers.
Yeah, I can get some good pointers from Chad on how to stop the triple and about the fullback dive.
I've been talking to Bolden.
I don't know. I mean, obviously, you're going to be playing against others, and you'll be like, dang, I wish we were, preparing for a triple option. Because there are some things in the off season that it really helps you to do. And, the ability to play fundamentally really, really sound and just a heightened awareness of the discipline of the things that you got to do. So I'm not saying I will miss playing some triple option teams, but I'll miss, if we don't play them or play somebody that's a triple, I'll miss what it allows our guys to do and challenges our guys to do.
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks.